Welcome everybody to GLP's 10 out of 10 with lighting designer Mark Butts. Mark is the lighting designer for One Republic, has been a designer for Tim McGraw and Faith Hill's Soul to Soul tour, Shania Twain's major comeback tour, lots of high-level corporate industrial gigs such as Hey Google, 88 Rising, and something not from a designer standpoint, but I just think it's really awesome is many years ago, the Shanghai experience, which Mark was the programmer on, and to the best of my knowledge, still to this day, the largest lighting gig that's ever taken place on planet Earth. So, so that said, welcome, Mark.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's, glad you can do this. So,
Yeah,
to just a really quick recap, these are 10 questions that we're asking different designers the exact same questions. Just a cool way to get different feedback from people. Some are educational, some are inspirational, and some are just plain a lot of fun. So all that said, with the first one, so what was your first show as a designer?
So after I got out of college, I was running a vintage clothing store in downtown Columbus, Ohio, and a lot of like the S&M, like Leatherman guys and all of the drag queens used to come in and buy stuff. And one day we were talking to one of the girls and they were like, we need somebody to do lights for this show tonight. If you want to come down after work and play around and just see what you can figure out. So my first professional lighting job was lighting a drag cabaret. I think I got $25 and I got a $25 bar tab, which eventually turned into me doing nightclubs and eventually a whole slew of illegal rave parties in the Midwest and everything. But that was kind of like my foot in the door. I never realized you could really do that kind of stuff for a living. And that was the thing that kind of started it out for me. It was just a total fluke, but it was fun and it was a great way to get started.
I'm thinking that one's going to be pretty unique.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't figure I would. Definitely didn't go to school for that. I have a conservatory degree, so I figured I would be a professional musician or something. And it turns out I'm not a very good musician. But so it wasn't a great opportunity for me to make a living. But this just gives me the ability to be around musicians and support them in a way that's creative and fun. So it worked out pretty well.
Awesome. With your rather extensive global body of work, what's the most spinal tap or embarrassing moment on a show that you're willing to talk about?
Well, yeah, there's definitely some statutes of limitations on that govern a few things that we can maybe talk about in a few years. I was thinking about that earlier, and there's a few things that are kind of hazy, but one thing I do remember really well is years ago out with Kenny Chesney, and if anybody's ever been around Kenny, you know that it's pretty much hard not to have a good time when you're out with them. Like if you can't have fun out with Kenny, then you just can't have fun. And one of our production assistants, it was her birthday, so Kenny had gotten this giant sheet cake as for her birthday, and in big letters had written in icing, "Your body is a wonderland" on it. And we were gonna bring her in and sing happy birthday to everybody, and I got like super high an hour before that. And to be clear, I wasn't working there because I would never do something like that when I was working, but I was just kind of hanging out. So I got really high and I was just sitting there, myself and this cake for like what seemed like hours. And I just kept like, I can't have any of the cake. And then it was finally like, fuck it, I'm just going to eat a slice of this cake. So this giant 3-foot sheet cake, I just cut this huge piece out. Just as they came in, I started eating it. And, I've kind of like, have icing all over my face and everything. So there's no excuse. I'm the only one in this room. And I kind of felt bad about it because it was like her birthday and everything, but it was just so good.
I gather Kenny wasn't that amused.
Kenny was fine. It was just another one of those like crazy things that happens when you're out with Kenny, and it was just another one of those things for the yearbook, and for the stories or whatever. So that's on the scheme and on the scale of all the craziness that's happened with him over the years. That breaks pretty low in the amount of stuff that they could do. So
I look forward to the statute of limitations in the future.
Oh yeah, it'll be great.
So what's the best advice that anybody's given you, professional or otherwise?
I learned quite a bit from my mom and dad growing up and watching them. We grew up, my dad was an auto worker. My mom at the time stayed home, which was pretty common for, the time that we grew up in. But my folks just, they always kind of lived below their means. They always like paid cash for everything. If you needed like a new refrigerator, you saved up money and you wait for it to go on sale and you went down and you bought it, that kind of thing. And those types of things kind of served me well over the years. And especially in times like we're going through right now where, you're not overextended, you can still live well, you don't have to worry about those types of things. My parents couldn't even get a credit card when they first applied for one because they had no credit, because they had never financed anything before. They just, when they needed something, they saved up and they paid cash for it, or they put it on layaway or that type of stuff. And so that's a lesson, especially for people in our business that are going to work for themselves. At some point you're going to have to realize, if you're going to be on your own, it's great, but that means that nobody's going to have your back when you need it. So you need some sort of plan. You need to be able to get through times like we're living through right now. And I didn't really realize that lesson, growing up watching them, but looking back on it now, it was probably one of the best things that anybody could ever taught me.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is.
Gotta love mom and dad, man. I mean, come on.
Absolutely. And your Midwest upbringing, I think, has a lot to do with that too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
What's your proudest achievement professionally?
There's 2 projects that I did that they're still to this day, I think about and kind of get goosebumps on. One was the opening ceremonies for the Olympics in Athens, and the other was the Super Bowl halftime show with Prince. The Athens Olympics was interesting because it was the first major world event after 9/11. And especially now, there were some parallels. After 9/11 happened, there were people kept going, we're never going to be able to have concerts. Nobody's ever going to get on an airplane. We can't have sports. We can't do all these things. The whole world's changed. And we did that show and we figured it out and it happened. And so I think that there's some hope there for what we're kind of going through right now, because we've been through it before and we kind of have a template for what happened there. And then the thing with Prince, it was one of those projects where, depending on how you look at it, either everything went right or everything went wrong on that show. But him coming out in the pouring rain and, playing cover tunes, there's that moment where he bats the microphone stand over and everybody's singing along. I mean, it's still a powerful moment. But both of those things were just kind of highlights of my career, because you look back on those and you go this is why we got into doing this for a living, right? We could make money doing anything, but nobody fucking gets to do stuff like this. How cool is this? So every once in a while you get one of those moments and it's amazing when you do.
Hands down the best halftime performance.
It's the proudest moment of my career, pretty much. Yeah. It was amazing.
Those big blue fixtures, maybe not so much, but he was incredible. Every time I see it, my jaw's on the ground. I mean, that is a magical moment for sure.
Well, thank you. It was a pleasure to be. I mean, it's awesome to just be there.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
So what do you do in your downtime?
Well, one of the things I've been trying to do lately is just, try to find a little bit better of a balance between work and that type of thing. And this is pre all of this. So I try to be healthy. So when I'm home, I try to, work out. I try to take advantage of that time to just relax and breathe and listen to music. I live in Pasadena, California, which is a really walkable neighborhood. So we just spend a lot of time outside, walking around and just exploring the neighborhood. And some people may know that, my girlfriend's a sommelier at a fine dining restaurant in Los Angeles. So we spend a lot of time, me and her, just exploring food and culture and everything in Los Angeles. That's something we're really passionate about and we really, really love doing too.
Fantastic. Sounds like a well-balanced situation.
Well, it's never well balanced, right? It's always too much of one or the other, especially right now.
Yeah, right now it's too much of one or the other.
You will never strike a balance in this business, I don't think. But as long as you're trying, you'll get close, and that's the best you can really hope for.
True that. So, what's the best venue over your career that you've worked in?
I don't know if it's for work that I've worked in, but I think the best venue to see shows as an audience member has been the LA Forum and also Madison Square Garden, because they're very similar configurations. There's just something really unusual about the Forum where even though there's 17,000 people in there, no matter where you're sitting, it feels like an intimate type of show.
Mhm.
You know, I've been all the way up in the last row of the 300 section, and I still feel like I'm at front of house somehow. Just something in the way that's designed. So it's just, I think from a fan experience standpoint, it's my favorite place to go see shows.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. If, you know, during the whole world stops spinning moment here, what's the one album of art or artist that you couldn't do without? So, you know, like your house is burning down and you're running out, you know, what's the album you grab out the door?
I have all the original pressing first editions of all of John Coltrane's work when he was on Impulse label. So it's Live at the Village Vanguard and Love Supreme and all that stuff. I somehow found it at a used record store years ago, mint condition for not a lot of money. So those are the things I couldn't live without any of that stuff. Why would you want
cool.
to?
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
I miss albums, man.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's nothing like.
What advice would you give a teenage version of Mark Butts?
I don't know that I could even talk to a teenage version of me looking back, but it would be you probably just like get your head out of your ass, start working on some of this stuff, take it seriously, take some business classes, learn more about computers. You know, it's crazy to like, you know, grow up in a small town in Ohio with no idea that this could even be an option for you. And that's the thing that I wish that like that we would have been able to see, that this was a career path that I could have maybe taken seriously and spent more time earlier in my career learning about, you know. So we would do that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
If you could sit down for coffee with one person, living or past, who would it be?
You notwithstanding, I assume, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, like, I think that the answer to that changes depending on what's going on in my life and, you know, where we're at and everything. I think at this particular time, it would be great to sit down either with Winston Churchill or FDR, mainly because these are guys that like took over countries in a complete collapse and managed to provide all this incredible leadership and all this great stuff that came out of it, especially in our country and the New Deal and everything. So I think it'd be just really interesting to sit down with a political figure and just talk about how do you do something like that? How do you provide leadership? How do you get all these people to agree and that type of thing? It's something that I've thought about looking at everything that's going on in our country right now. Like what would people like that do nowadays? I think it'd be the most interesting thing at the moment to sit down with guys like that and just talk about how they did what they did, you know?
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's definitely a weighty position to be in, for sure.
No shit.
I'm sure it gets worse, or you know, it gets heavier every go round. So.
Yeah, I mean, you just imagine like trying to lead through that, you know, like we have to do that in our business, you know, where we have to put teams together of people that have never met before within an hour or two and try to find a way to get a tour together and, you know, produce all that stuff in a day or so. So it's interesting when you think about like how people can lead a country like this through a crisis like that and get, you know, 100 million people that from all over all walks of life to agree on something and move forward. Like there's a lot of lessons there for a lot of people, I think.
True that.
Yeah.
Okay, so our final question. So your country's called you to be in the Olympics. Summer or winter, what sport would you be competing in?
I think competitive mixology is a sport, right?
I have a feeling we're going to have a whole new version of the Olympics by the time we're all done.
If it's not at the Olympics, it's definitely going to be at LDI this year. So I will be gold medal finalist, I hope.
Okay. Well, thank you, man. Appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks.
All right. Thanks. Take care, Mark.
All right, man.